The Lord be with you. A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Luke. At that time, there came to Jesus some Sadducees, that is, those who say there is no resurrection. And they asked him a question, saying, "Teacher, Moses wrote for us that if a man's brother dies, having a wife but no children, the man must take the wife and raise up children for his brother. Now there were 7 brothers. The first took a wife and died without children. And the second and the third took her. And likewise, all 7 left no children and died. Now afterwards, the woman herself also died. In the resurrection, therefore, whose wife will the woman be? For the 7 of them had her as wife." And Jesus said to them, "The sons of this age marry and are given in marriage. But those who are accounted worthy to attain to that age and to the resurrection from the dead neither marry nor are given in marriage, for they cannot die anymore, because they are equal to angels and are sons of God, being sons of the resurrection. But that the dead are raised, even Moses showed in the passage about the burning bush, where he calls the Lord the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob. Now, he is not God of the dead, but of the living, for all live to him." The Gospel of the Lord. Late questions for today. Question number 1. What is the overriding theme of today's readings? Overriding theme. Question 2. The 7 brothers and their mother in our first reading would rather submit themselves to violent death than commit the slightest sin against God. Mind you, they were only asked to eat pork. What do you call it? Bacon or what? Yes, they were only asked to eat that. They were not asked to do anything terrible. But it was against the law to eat pork. The Hebrew Jewish law. Now, they would rather die, not just die, but die. They would rather die violent deaths than to commit the slightest sin against God. What is it that motivated them? What gave them strength? And what are the lessons for us? Question 3. Name 3 key virtues that the 7 brothers and their mother in the first reading exhibited. 3 key virtues. You can call them Christian virtues or wholesome virtues. 4. Now, this is a serious question I'm addressing to each person. Do you really believe in the resurrection? At the creed, at the end of this homily, we shall recite the creed. And you say, "I believe in the resurrection. I believe in afterlife." Do you really believe in the resurrection? How does this belief influence your daily life if you do? Don't be too sure that you do. Because that by their fruits, it is our fruits that show what we really believe, not what we say we believe. Do you really believe in the resurrection? How does such belief influence your daily life? And what are you prepared to sacrifice for this belief? What are you prepared to sacrifice for this belief? Chibike.
I want to answer question 1.
Yes.
The theme of today's reading is Jesus, Prince of Life.
Jesus,
Prince
the
of
Prince
Life.
of Life. Not of the dead. Jesus, the Prince of Life. Give him a round of applause. Yes. Wait me.
I want to answer question number 3.
Yes.
The 3 key virtues that the 7 brothers and their mother exhibited was first, perseverance in the time of death.
Perseverance, 1.
2, courage.
Second, courage.
And third, faithfulness in God.
Fidelity to God. Faithfulness to God or fidelity to God. Give her a resounding applause. Yes.
I want to answer question 2.
Yes.
What motivated them was faith, because they believed in the resurrection, that they are going to live with God after
What motivated them was faith in the resurrection. They believed that when they die, they will rise again. Next.
Yes. And what gave them strength was the assurance of God that after death there is life in
What
heaven.
gave them strength was the assurance they had of God that after death there is life. Next.
And the lessons for us are to endure what we are going through so as to attain eternal life.
To endure whatever we are going through so as to have eternal life. QED. Yes. Give her. Question 4.
Father, good morning.
Good morning.
I believe in the resurrection.
Ah.
Because of that, my day-to-day activities, I'm conscious of that. The way I live my life, even in my home, outside, what I do. Because I know that on a daily basis, that if I live a life that is pleasing and acceptable to God, that when I go beyond, that I will be with Christ and live forever. So when I see some of the things going around in my life, it might look normal for others, but for me, I don't see it at the same, because I know where I am going. And most of the time, I'm being accused of such living, trying to just live the way Christ is living, because he is the one I'm looking up to.
Because you know where you are going.
Because I know where I'm preparing myself to go. But some people might not understand. They will be thinking you are holier than thou. So that have been
But Jesus asks us to go and be holier than others now. He says you are the light of the world. What does that mean? Does that not mean go and be holier than others? So, no apologies. If they say you are doing holier than thou, say that even if I'm pretending now, may it become real. Right? May it become real. Because actually I want to be a light shining in your midst.
I want my life to be an example to others to also believe in what I believe.
So when your husband, they quarrel you just say, I believe in the resurrection. So you can go ahead and insult me as you wish. I believe in the resurrection. Right?
Yes, because I want 2 of us at that last day, even if there is no marriage there, that I will be happy that he makes it. So
you are working hard to win him over to the Lord.
Yes, I'm working hard to win him over for Christ.
Give her a round of applause. An example of faith, hope, and courage. The 7 brothers. An example of faith, hope, and courage. You see, people make their choices and live their lives in accordance with what they believe. I'm not saying in accordance with what they say they believe, but what they really believe. Jesus Christ says, by their fruits you shall know them. It is after, when the person behaves, that you go backwards to know what the person really believes. People do say they believe this or that, but don't mind them. Watch what they do. Watch the choices they make. Watch their life pattern. Then you will know what they really believe. I mean, Nigerians say they believe in the resurrection, but they hold on to this world like mad. And if they miss anything in this world, it is the greatest loss. It is the greatest tragedy. Do they really believe in the resurrection? No. We can see the example of people who believe in the resurrection, can't we? The 7 Hebrew boys and their mother, who were ordered by the pagan king to eat swine flesh, which is against the law of Moses, they refused to defile themselves and to disobey their God. For us, for many of us, it's a very small thing now. What do man go do? There's no be only pork. For many of us, you just go ahead. I mean, the level of compromise in this society, where people are ready to compromise, everybody is doing it now. Everybody is doing it now. But they knew that, you see, once you take one step in the wrong direction like that, you will keep taking more steps. I mean, the child that becomes an armed robber, he doesn't begin by being an armed robber. Mother says, don't go and take meat from the soup unless I permit you, right? The child goes in the mother's absence and takes it. You may say it's a small thing, but the child is learning a bad habit. Then in the school, he steals the pencil of the neighbor. It's increasing, right? The next time in the university, he steals a phone. It's increasing, right? And when he comes out and after some years he has no job, he negotiates for a gun to go and waylay somebody. It doesn't watch your life and see that you don't begin committing sin by committing a very big one. The thing goes with practice. Practice makes perfect in good things as well as in bad things. But they knew that. The boys knew that, and they said, no, we won't begin. Even in this small thing, it is symbolic. My faith, did Jesus not say it? The one who is faithful in little things will be faithful in great. As they died, they were killed in the most dastardly, callous manner. You read that reading? Some were put out your tongue, and they cut the tongue. And as they died one after the other, they each affirmed their faith that death is not the end. This is before Jesus. I hope you know this is in the Old Testament. This is before Jesus. Jesus did say, do not be afraid of those who can kill the body, but they can do nothing to the soul. What a shame for most of us who say we are Christians to be so scared of those who can kill the body. I mean, all this winch demon all over the place, that those who are supposed to be Christians are supposed to be able to just command, get out, get behind me, Satan. They are so frightened of cockroaches and, lizards and wall gecko. Can you imagine? Simple wall gecko. Wall gecko falls on somebody, he's going to look for St. Michael oil. But as they died, they affirmed their faith that death is not the end. And when people have this kind of faith, even death self, they fear you. Even death will be afraid of you. Because they say when a blind man begin to boast, the Hausa man says, when blind man begin to boast, he may be standing on a stone. So when death sees that you are so courageous, death will be afraid, doesn't know what you are standing upon. But do people have that faith? These people, they knew that there is life after death, as Ekene said. They knew that there is the resurrection of the just. Look at what the first son said. He said, you kill me, I am a candidate for the resurrection. You, I don't know where you are going. There's no resurrection for you. As their tormentors put pressure on them to denounce their faith and obey the king, they declared. Can we read it together? We are prepared to die rather than break the law of our ancestors. Again. Can you see the knife by the neck? We are prepared to die rather than break the law of our ancestors. In this refusal to sin against God, even at the cost of their lives, we discover some key Christian doctrinal and moral principles that are useful for us, and we need to learn them. One, can we read together? Faith in the existence of an almighty God who is king over all. They believed that things don't happen by chance. There is somebody, what Father Patrick called an overarching controller. There is somebody, there is a power that is controlling everything, that is seeing what you are doing to me. And that power that is seeing what you are doing to me will do something. You may win today, but that you won't win forever. 2, faith that this God is a God of love and justice. This God that is in control of everything, you can oppress me under the locker now, but there is somebody that is seeing everything, including those things that are hidden under the locker. And that person is good. That person is just. That person is loving. Well, people who do not believe, and especially a lot of people in our generation, in our society, they say, if he loves me, he should not allow this person to harm me. Isn't it? Is that not what our people believe? If he really loves me, he should not allow somebody to. If somebody harms me, either that I'm not praying well, or that he doesn't love me, or the sin I committed when I was 18 years old is being visited on me. Is that not the popular belief here? So, belief in the resurrection, believe that this life is not all there is so central to the Christian life. Because the Christian begins to see his or her existence as a continuum. You know what is called a continuum? Begins from birth, but does not end with death. It continues in the resurrection. So the fact that you suffer an injustice today, when you are 50 years old, when you are 30 years old, is nothing. Because you have eternity. Next, faith that death is not the end of everything, but rather a passage to new life. If you, even though you say, I believe in the resurrection, I believe in afterlife, if deep in your heart you think that is the end of everything, all you want to do in this life is grab and grab and grab. Because if deep inside, really, you think that is everything, then if you don't have enough in this world, you have been cheated. But if you believe that death is just a stepping stone to new life for you, then if others are grabbing and your hand is not strong enough to grab plenty in this world, you know that this is just one phase. Some people are on top in the first phase. Other people are on top in the second phase. Jesus Christ says the first shall be the last shall be the... If you understand that logic, then like our friend, even when your husband is misbehaving or your wife is misbehaving, you can say, how can I help this person so that in the second phase he will not lose out? I know, as you said, I know there will be no marriage or giving in marriage there, but how can I help this person? And the way to help this person is not to give it back to him or give it back to her the way he is doing to me. Next, hope that the dead shall rise again. The dead is to sustain us through this life, to live correctly, we must have that strong hope that the dead will rise again. Next, hope that there will be judgment after death, that the just will be vindicated. What do we call the four last things? The four last things are death, judgment, heaven, hell. Meaning, we believe in those four last things. Next, hope that ultimately good shall be victorious over evil, love shall triumph over hatred, life shall conquer death. Again, hope that ultimately good shall be victorious over evil, love shall triumph over hatred, life shall conquer death. Now, take note of the word ultimately. Because it's not every moment that good does become victorious over evil. There are appearances of evil triumphing, right? On a daily basis, there are appearances of evil triumphing. But every believer has to make a distinction between momentary evil and ultimate evil. Momentary good and ultimate good. I had a discussion with somebody in the course of the week that centered on the problem of Nigerians being instant gratification rather than deferred gratification. When you lose sight of your eternal calling, then you do everything to gratify yourself, to grab everything you can grab now. I mean, when you see Nigerians driving and they get to a traffic light, and when the traffic light is turning green, the people who are 10, 20 cars away that are horning with such ferocity, with such aggression, you will think that if this light turns red, they are dead. Life will end if this light that is green now, and there is 20 seconds or 30 seconds, if that light should turn red, we will all be dead. Do you experience what I'm talking about? The stampede that goes into just making sure you cross that green light before it turns red. It's like 20 seconds. In another 20, 30 seconds, it will turn green again. But no. Why? No wonder Nigerians are dying every day of hypertension, dying of all kinds of diseases. Self-contrived stress. Absolutely unnecessary. And you will discover that 95% of them are not in a hurry to go to anywhere. They're just closing from their work and going home. Finish. There is no, right? By 4 p.m., if you are by the Games Village traffic light, and you are, look, cars are, let's say you are 2, 3 cars, the first or second or third car to the light, and there are cars 10, 15 away, and they are blaring horn and winding down their window to harass you while you are not. So there is a way you grab things with aggression if you think that, this is the end. And I'm like, don't they know that when this light changes to red, it will change to green again? Hope that ultimately good shall be victorious over evil, love shall triumph over hatred, and life shall conquer death. Meaning even the person that is dying, and it is clear that this person is dying, that person has hope that ultimately life, because the God he or she serves is the God of life and not the God of death. Life will conquer death. 7, courage to put one's faith into practice. Courage. One Christian virtue that is so important for all of us is what? Courage. Because you may believe everything all we are talking about, but if you don't have courage, you are not able to put it into practice. You need courage. You need courage in the office to speak the truth. You need courage in your neighborhood to speak the truth. You need courage when everyone is misbehaving, to stand up for the truth and for justice. Next, courage never to compromise with evil. Never to compromise. Not once in a while, but never. 9. Courage to embrace suffering and even to pay the ultimate price for the sake of one's belief. What is the ultimate price? Now, there is death, and there, in the course of the week, somebody said that the person don't die, finish. So Father Dominic and I were asking, is there a die way no finish? He said, don't die, finish. Don't die, finish. Okay. To pay the ultimate price, knowing that the die finish. Say this die, no be finish. No be death die. Nah. Or just die. Because you know that at the end there is life. And that is why Christians can die smiling. Some of you saw the photo of the nun on Facebook who was found dead smiling with broad smile. Oh, none of you saw it. Broad smile. She must have been dying and is smiling because she saw where she was going. And then that stamp, that image remained even after she died. Some people are so angry when they are dying. With all the people in the world, it is me that can come and take. He's so angry when they are dying that when you see their corpse safe, I have been praying for many years now that my death should give witness to Christ as much as my life. I will not die an angry man. Even if I am being murdered, I will die like the people we have read about today, giving glory to God, and as much as possible, smiling. In Jesus' name. Number 10. Whereas human life is good and precious, it is not an absolute good. This is something that you must try to understand. Human life is good. Human life is precious. Look at the effort we make. Everybody makes to a person is married, that they will have children. The anxiety for a newly wedded person, whether he's going to get pregnant, whether he's going to marry, whether he's going to have children, and so on and so forth. The young people who are not yet married, they are thinking, if I get to 40, if I get to 45 and I'm not married, so we value life, right? But it is not the ultimate good. It's not the ultimate good. It is good, but it has its own level. It is at a level. Life in its earthly state is not the highest good. And if you don't understand this logic, then you don't understand the concept of Christian sacrifice. You won't understand that life in its earthly form, and that's why I say in its earthly form, meaning that it has other forms, right? Life in its earthly form is not the highest good. It is very clear in the teaching of the church that there are goods that are higher than life. Justice and charity, that's why somebody can die in pursuit of justice and offer his or her life. Justice, faith. And in our own church, we have a history of people dying to preserve virginity, right? St. Agatha, St. Lucy, St. Maria Goretti. No, this value is more important for me than physical life. I know that most of those who are living before me, they will give away their virginity. 1, 2. Even if it means to prevent themselves from having a slap. Not even to just... Obedience to God and the defense of truth must be considered higher goods than physical human life. Do you understand? Please pay attention to this. Because after this, I want you to be able to explain, to teach others. Obedience to God. That's why the apostles say, do whatever you like with us. Obedience to God is better than obedience to man. 12. One must be ready to sacrifice one's life if clinging to it will mean sinning against God or violating truth and justice. Often, clinging to life means compromise. Often, very often. Clinging to life by any means, by all means. 13. It is better to obey God rather than men. Acts of Apostles chapter 4 verse 19, chapter 5 verse 29. God's covenant relationship with his people is one that calls for unwavering commitment and absolute fidelity. God doesn't play games with us. And he doesn't want us to attempt to play games with him. He demands and he deserves unwavering commitment and absolute fidelity. This was demonstrated to a heroic degree by the mother and the 7 sons. They said, can you read that? What are you trying to find out from us? We are prepared to die rather than break the law of our ancestors. God is the giver of life. So if it means giving back that life, God can give it back in immense ways. But you see, you need to believe in another life in order to give up. There's a powerful instinct to hold on to our physical life. Very powerful. But if you do not believe in the other life, you will hold on to this and do anything that they say you should do in order to stay alive. But once you believe in the other life, you see, when in the gospel, when these people came and were talking about the 7 men that married the one woman, and they wanted to taunt Jesus with it. They thought they were going to make a fool of Jesus. When people die, if you say there's the resurrection, the Sadducees, if you say there's the resurrection, when they wake up, whose wife will this person be? Jesus looked at them and said, you think we are talking of life in this form? We are talking of life in another form. In that place, they know they marry. Because they know they die. The reason why people marry is because people die. In the next life, people don't die. So they will not need to marry. And I have constantly helped people to understand that, look, in our own tradition, I hope you know, many of us have not lived the celibate life well, but the celibate life is meant to teach this. Our life as priests, celibate. Part of what the church wants to teach with priests being celibate is to be a symbol of that life which does not die and therefore does not need marriage. Do you understand that? Actually, when they talk about celibate life, all people often are thinking about is sex. It is not about sex. The core point is about the resurrection. Do you understand? The core point is about the resurrection. Because the powerful instinct that most of you have to replicate yourself, to reproduce yourself, is because you will die. And as you die, something in you saying, if I die, it go finish. It go dead, finish. Die, finish. So let me get one Johnny that looks like me. But to courageously embrace the celibate life, it is to say, I know I will not die. I will not die dead, finish. That I will be alive in God. So I don't need to replicate myself as an example for others to begin to see what life will be in the other world. Do you understand? That is the key point of celibacy. But we are in such a sexualized age that when you talk of celibacy, all people are thinking about is having sex or not having sex. But that is the key point. And Jesus makes it clear today that in the world to come, in the resurrection, the reason why there is no marriage is that there is no death. People live forever. So our life is supposed to symbolize that life where people live forever. And so you don't need the marriage. And I'm making this point also to say that there are Christians who desire marriage, and marriage is not forthcoming. Is it the worst tragedy in the world? No. Then you just adopt. You adopt the celibate state for as long as it lasts. And know that you are alive. But do people do that? They live miserable lives. They live miserable lives because they are not married. I am 45 years old and I am not married. It's miserable. When you say you are miserable, you are miserable. And you know what the world will do to you? The world will load more misery upon your head. What Jesus has done for us, St. Paul says, it is for freedom that Christ set us free. What Jesus has done for us, I think we have not even begun to scratch the surface. You understand? We have not begun to scratch the surface of what Jesus has done for us. Jesus has set us free. If the Son sets you free, at a time of widespread infidelity and apostasy in the land, Joshua told the children of Israel, choose ye whom you will serve. As for me and my house, we will serve the Lord. Joshua 24:14. The early apostles were confronted with similar circumstances as the mother of the 7 sons and the 7 sons in Maccabees. They told their tormentors, it is better to obey God rather than men. Now, that's a powerful choice because you know the consequences of that. You know the consequences of saying that. The king says, worship me. And they say, no, it is better to obey God rather than man. What it means is the catacombs. They were driven underground and then they were thrown into prison and so on and so on. Don't speak anymore in the name of this man. And they say, no. It is better to obey God rather than man. And now they were candidates for martyrdom. As soon as you say that, can we say this together? Death is not the greatest loss in life. The greatest loss is what dies inside us while we live. Can something die inside you while you are alive? Of course. Of course. Next, it matters not whether you live or you die. What matters is what you live for and what you are prepared to die for. I actually learned this quote when I was 17 years old. I believe I was 17 years old when I came by this quote. And I remember I put it in the souvenir card of my ordination. It matters not whether you live or you die. What matters is what you live for and what you are prepared to die for. This is like a life principle for me. What does it profit me to live for 100 years and just live and just exist? What makes life worthwhile is what you live for. It's not just that you live. There are many people who are doing nothing but just live. No. It doesn't make sense. It is what you live for that gives life meaning, that gives life purpose. Not just that you live. We have got to a stage where people are just, you see all the industry about preserving ourselves, elongating our lives, as if elongating life is an end in itself. Elongating life should not be an end in itself. It is what manner of life and for what purpose. The word purpose, the word meaning. Tell me, what is live for 100 years in good health? And I listened to a person talk, a spiritual psychologist talk about, this thing they say, you must live a balanced life. You must try to live a very balanced life. Balanced life. It says, look, when it comes to serving God, sometimes that balance cannot be struck. You must make time for leisure, make enough time for leisure, make enough time for play, make enough time for this, make enough. But he said, balance. Go and look at the prophets. Which one of them had a balanced life? That when you are filled with passion for God, there is no such thing called passion, called balance. And I understood what he was talking about. When you are fueled with passion, do you think that those 7 brothers had balance in their life? Balance would have meant what man go do. We go confession after. What man go do? That's balance. They had a purpose for their life. And the key purpose of their life is doing the will of God. Interesting thing is that we had a lot of these examples from the Old Testament, even before Jesus. If I perish, let me perish. Every Christian that is going to live a correct, heroic Christian life has to be able to say, this is the correct thing to do. I am going ahead to do it. If I perish, let me perish. Where we get today, that are not ready. People are not ready to stick their neck for anything because of a little harm, little inconvenience. Even just to be deprived of contract is too much for many people. As if I don't get that contract, I will never get any contract in my life again. I have called it, I've identified it as desperation. The problem with Nigerians, desperation. Just as I said, if I don't cross that green light, the world will end. In the same way, this contract I'm pursuing that they say I should bring kick front, if I don't get it, my business life is ended. Jesus' clear teaching on the resurrection and the afterlife. The Sadducees were a very powerful group in Israel with great religious, political, and economic influence, the Sadducees. But they did not believe in immortality of the soul or in the resurrection. They thought that this life is all there is. Life after death was for them ridiculous. The idea of the resurrection was for them laughable. You remember when Paul went to Athens in the Acts of Apostles. They listened attentively to what Paul was preaching until he mentioned the resurrection from the dead. And they laughed at him and said, we shall hear you again. Go away. Some other time we shall hear you. And they laughed. Jesus' teaching was a threat to their power and influence. So they set out to make a fool of him with their mischievous question. They confronted Jesus with the ridiculous story of the woman who had married and lost 7 husbands, where there was the levirate custom. And he lost the husbands in quick succession before she too died. To which of them will the woman be wife? In the next life they asked. They thought they had nailed Jesus, really. I mean, this was a dilemma. But Jesus saw the stupidity of their question. He ignored the question, as he often does. He ignored their question. Instead, he asked them about the fate of some of the greatest men and women in their history. So, if person die, he die finish. He die death finish. If that is what it means. So what has happened to Abraham? You mean Abraham has died dead, finish, pari, autant. You mean that Isaac died dead, finish, blotted out of memory. You mean that Jacob died dead, finish. You mean that Moses died dead, finish, ended. Do you imagine that God created these good people only to blot them out of his memory? That's the question Jesus asked. People like Abraham, people like Moses, people like Deborah, people like John the Baptist, people like Mary, mother of Jesus, people like Peter, John Paul II, people like Francis of Assisi, people like Mother Teresa. Do you think that God will just create them and then they die and they just die dead, finish? Nothing? That's the puzzle Jesus gave them. Do you really think that such men who were faithful to God in every way just died and perished? Do you really think that God, who loved them so much, who influenced their lives so intensely, would have forgotten those that even we still remember? Say, we still remember some of them. Isn't it unthinkable? Wouldn't it be absurd? That great men and women of virtue, friends of God, all the wonderful people that we know, will just disappear into oblivion? Chidebere, like your grandfather. You met your grandfather. But you mean he just perished like that? He must be somewhere, isn't it? With some kind of life. For Jesus to imagine that such beautiful and glorious lives would simply dissolve into nothingness is the height of absurdity. Today's readings raise the fundamental religious question about human existence and destiny. Fundamental, very fundamental. Question 1. What is the purpose of human existence? And every day, you and I must be asking ourselves this question. When you wake up and you find yourself awake, and you see you get leg, you get hand, they are walking, ask yourself, what is the purpose? Why do we have to die? Why do we have to die? Can't we just live like that? Then what happens after death? Fundamental. Is there any purpose in unmerited suffering? A lot of people suffer unjustly, unmerited. The people we have thrown into prison and torture, we think that they merit it. A lot of people suffer. Illness, accident, disasters, natural disasters, misfortune, poverty. Those who are making it economically, financially, they know deep in their hearts that there are people who worked harder than them in life and have not made it financially. True or false? So, is there any purpose in unmerited suffering? What will be the reward of the just? Those who miss out in this world, what will be their reward? What will be the punishment of the unjust? Is this world all there is? The Sadducees had no answer to these questions, but Jesus gives us the answers. He says, I am the resurrection. Can we read it together? I am the resurrection. Anyone who believes in me, even though he dies, will live. And whoever lives and believes in me will never die. John chapter 11, verse 25 to 26. That's a powerful statement that answers many questions. St. Paul says, quote, if the dead are not raised, then of all people we are to be most pitied. 1 Corinthians 15, 19. That is heavily loaded answer to the Sadducees question. Now let's read this, what the Indian mystic said. Death is not the extinguishing of light. It is simply putting out the lamp because dawn has come. Again, death is not the extinguishing of light. It is simply putting out the lamp because dawn has come. We put out light when we woke up. The security lights around our houses, put them off. Why? Because there is light. You don't need the candle. You don't need the lantern when there is light. So for believers, many people have heard stories of near-death experiences. People who have had near-death experiences, what do they talk about? Light. They talk of indescribable, inestimable lights that they saw. In the preface, the prayer we say before the Eucharistic prayer, in the preface for the dead, we read, can we quote? In him, that is in who? Jesus. In him, the hope of blessed resurrection has dawned, that those saddened by the certainty of dying might be consoled by the promise of immortality to come. Indeed, for your faithful Lord, life is changed, not ended. And when this earthly dwelling turns to dust, an eternal dwelling is made ready for them in heaven. This is our faith, you know. Whenever we are celebrating Mass for the dead, at Mass we read this. When all my earthly possessions have gone, and all my friends and family are lost, you will still walk beside me, leading me through the fire to the peace on the other side. Every Christian should be familiar with the concept of the other side. The other side of Calvary. The other side of the horizon. Those of you who never read Martin Luther King Jr.'s last speech, his last speech, go and read it. Google it and read it. Where he speaks of, I have been to the mountaintop. I have looked at the other side of the horizon. I have seen something of the other side. I no longer care. How many of you are familiar with that speech? I am no longer bothered about dying. They may kill me. Actually, he was killed the next day. They may kill me, but right now, it's no longer my concern. We shall reach the promised land. I know I may not get there with you, but that's no longer a problem for me. That's somebody who has grown. He has grown. Everybody who grows up, really, this physical life no longer means much to them. So if this physical life and all the pleasures of life and all the things of life still mean so much for you, you have not grown up. I dare say, you have not grown up. Take who and who? Take the people who have grown up. Is it Jesus? Jesus called his disciples and said, you know what? We are going to Jerusalem. The Son of Man will be hated, will be rejected, will be punished, will be, and so on. And then he'll be crucified. And on the third day, the people who had not grown up like Peter around him, what did they say? Say, no, it can't happen. A lot of people here are still doing like that Peter of that time. The unconverted Peter. The infantile Peter that has not grown up. But all the people, all the mystics, all the philosophers and mystics who have grown up, when it comes to face with death, it is not tragic. It is not tragedy for them. It is liberation. It is release. It's something that people who have grown up embrace. Not with fear, but with anxious expectation of fuller life. How does believing in the resurrection and afterlife challenge our life here and now? How? How do we live our daily lives as believers in the resurrection? What are the implications of our excessive pursuit of sensual pleasure, material wealth, positions of power and influence? There are people who are looking for, let's say, chieftaincy. They want to be chief. That title in their village, they must chop the thing. They must chop that title. Whatever it takes, if it means going to some shrine, they will do it because it's my right. It's my grandfather's title. I must take it. True or false? That's why I say, do you really believe in the resurrection? If you believe in resurrection, what are the implications? In this country, before now, I think things improved. For people to get into some big positions, you needed to be in Ogboni confraternity. Thank God that the young people don't know much about it. Thank God. In order to be in big positions in government, in big positions in corporations, in big positions in the legal profession, and so on and so forth, in this country before now, you needed to be in some kind of amok or Ogboni confraternity and so on. And many so-called Christians subscribed, they joined, in order to be able to attain those positions. Because the evil ones who control the powers, they will make sure you don't get it if you don't join their club. And many people who go to church, they subscribed. In fact, time was in this country that even some pastors were accused of being, suspected of being in those cults in order to get the powers of this world. If you are looking for the powers of this world by any means, you will get it. But you would have rubbished yourself mercilessly. And many people, Just like what St. Paul says about money. The love of money is the root of all evils. And many, in the desire for money like this, have given their souls all kinds of fatal wounds. Now, summary. Number 1. Indeed, death is inevitable, but it does not have the final word for the children of God. Death is not the end of everything. 2. Our God is the God of life. The God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob is the God of the living, not the dead. That is why if you are living in God, you are alive. Not even death can separate you from that life. 3. The virtuous shall live and reign in the everlasting peace with God, while the wicked go into everlasting damnation. 4. The hope of conquering death and living eternally with God should strengthen us as we face daily the challenges of witness to Christ. 5. This hope gives strength to the martyrs of the church and all who live faithful Christian lives. Heavenly Father, we thank you, we praise you, we glorify your holy name for your many blessings. Thank you for your love and your goodness. Thank you for once again confronting us today with the truth of life after death. Thank you for confronting us today with the examples of the Maccabean brothers, with the parable of Jesus, with the example of the Sadducees' question and Jesus' answer, for teaching us that there is life after death. There is the resurrection. And that the quality of our life here, our obedience to you, to your command, our fidelity to your way, will determine our place in the other life. Help us to put this before our eyes on a daily basis. Yes, Lord, we say we believe in the resurrection, but many times the choices we make, the life we live, betray that belief. Help us to be true in our lives. In the choices we make, help us to be true to our faith in the resurrection. Help us to be people who really believe that you are in control, whatever it is that may happen to us. Help us to be consoled with the fact that this life is not all there is. Through Christ our Lord.